Let's cover shortcuts quickly. So I'll be using a bunch of them throughout the rest of the videos, and I'll be using them because they will either help me save some time or they will allow me to like move some of the objects and place those objects faster, which will also like is saving time. Because this scene, for example, there's a lot of objects in there. I mean, it's showing like 6,000 objects, but it doesn't mean that I've placed 6,000 objects by hand. It's just like counting every single mesh, either from like maybe from particles or like some kitbashi assets that I was like bashed together, right? So, but imagine the scene was empty, and for example, there's a bunch of benches that I would want to add, and yeah, back to the quickly. The objects are grouped in here, and the objects are grouped in there, and the objects are grouped in here, and there's like some rest in between, right? But back to shortcuts. So, for example, if I want to place this bench over here, what I won't do is, I don't want to just like duplicate it and drag it over by pressing G and then trying to figure out, all right, which axis I have to move my bench on. I mean, there's we can look at in the corner and we see that I need to move it over here by X axis, right? So I'll do this, move it by X, all right. And then I have to press G and move it by Y. Oh, and now I have to go out of my camera and I have to like look at it up and then go between GX and GY, and then I want to place the same bench, for example, over there, right? So, and again, it's exhausting. So what I will do instead is I will grab my object, I will place my 3D cursor by pressing Shift and right click. So I want to place my bench over here, right? So I'm grabbing the bench, pressing Shift right click, and then Shift S, and click selection to cursor, right? Duplicating it, I want to place my bench over there, Shift S, I'm sorry, Shift right click, and then Shift S, selection to cursor. Again, let's duplicate it, Shift right click, I want to place it where my 3D cursor is, Shift S, selection to cursor. So that's how I will place every object, and it just, you know, it's not that much time or that much effort. I mean, it is some to like move elements by G and Y and Z axis, right? But it's just that when there's like so many elements, it takes up a lot of time. So for example, there's this crowd. Instead of again like duplicating them and like moving them on the axis, like trying to figure out the right one and then placing them, what I will do, I will just like duplicate it, Shift S, selection to cursor. I will grab a bunch of them, Shift S, I'm sorry, Shift right click, selection to cursor, and again, like so. Now the other thing is, it snaps them by their feet, and it snaps them by their feet because the origin is at their feet, right? So let's isolate this one. Let's set origin to the center of mass. So if I will like duplicate him and want to place him over there, it will place him at the height of his waist because the 3D cursor is over there. So what I will do instead is either move my 3D cursor at the bottom of his feet, set origin to the 3D cursor, right? Or I will just go into edit mode, mesh, edit mode, and then move the mesh around like so. So that's moving and placing the objects around. And it will apply to different into like different things as well. So for example, I want to create a cable over here, over there. So I will use one of the add-ons to draw the curves, and I will talk about this add-on later on. So for example, I'm drawing one cable, second one, third one. So for example, now that maybe I will want to move this object to this top ledge, right? So instead of like pressing G, X axis, and then going over here, oh, I moved it on the wrong axis. Let's move it on Z axis. Let's move it in here, right? And then I have to zoom in. So what I will do instead is, again, press Shift right click, Shift S. Maybe I'll extrude it. Shift right click, Shift S, right? Shift S, Shift right click, Shift S. What else? All right. So if there is a bunch of modifiers on a mesh, like in here, in case, like in this one, or maybe, you know what, let's isolate this one. So instead of like having to, I know, let's imagine there's like two more. Instead of having to click apply over here, click apply over here, or like pressing Ctrl A a bunch of times while hovering over here, what I would do, I would just convert this object to a mesh. So at my right click, you will see convert to. So I will just go right click, convert to mesh, and it applies all of the modifiers. So again, in order to, I don't want to hover my mouse over here and start clicking everything. I just want to convert it to mesh. So I'm using like the older Blender shortcuts, and convert to is just like, if you type in convert to, you will find this setting over here, right? And selection to snap. Snap is under like snap. I'm sorry, but not grease pencil snap. Now the last shortcut I will use is to Shift, Control, Alt, and C. Set origin. So sometimes when we will be like modeling stuff, our center of mass will change. So sometimes maybe our center of mass will suddenly be, I don't know, outside of our mesh, which will make the extremely, I don't know, irritating to try and rotate this mesh, right? Like, I want to rotate this mesh along its like center of mass. So what I want to do is press Shift, Alt, Control C, set origin to center of mass, right? So it's so much easier now to control and rotate this mesh. And like this, right? So I think that's it for the shortcuts. Those are like the most important ones that I'll be using. All right.